If you're looking for a sure way to guarantee that you have a good time, go ahead and subscribe to 30-something Broadcast on YouTube.
I still feel terribly moved when I hear that record.
Cuckoo.
All right, and we're back, guys. Just talking 90s cartoons and hitting a little vape. No big deal. This week's episode, we're going to be talking about... Well,
It's open concept.
I'm going to let
It's
you
open.
bring it in, actually, Blake. Bring it in with where you got this idea from. And I think that'll be a good way to start this topic, man.
All right, so I was talking with Carter probably Monday or Tuesday, and there wasn't really anything new going on, so I was telling him about this TV show, The Office. Classic show, super funny, a lot of deadpan, but there's a character in the show, Andy, and he's just like the most awkward, and he says this thing, and it's like, in the moment, it's very flyby, and they don't dwell on it. It's just like a statement, and then it's just like, boom, next scene. But it's super candid, and it made me kind of, think about some of this deep stuff. But
the weird thing is, now I'm exactly where I want to be. I got my dream job at Cornell, and I'm still just thinking about my old pals. Only now they're the ones I made here. I wish there was a way to know you're in the good old days before you've actually left them. Someone should write a song about that.
And that kind of got me thinking, and obviously I was talking with Carter about it and stuff, and just this thought kind of just like hit me, and I was like, is it possible in the grand scheme of the world, not us, not our good times, but humanity as a whole, is it possible that our good times are behind us? Because there's so much negative stuff going on, between the mass shootings and the hurricanes and the fires and stuff going on internationally. It's just not pretty. And so I kind of posed the question to you, is the pendulum reached its arc, and is it now starting to swing backwards? Are we going to actually digress by continuing to push technology, by continuing to divide ourselves? In the grand scheme of things, I do feel like the pendulum is swinging backwards right now.
Well, we talked about, it's funny because on a more micro level, we talked about this in our 30-something Proverbs episode, which is something we continuously, I know we did a good episode because we continuously go back to that episode, man. And if you haven't checked that out, if you're a new listener, if you go back, I think it's episode 3 or 4, you go back and check out the 30-something Proverbs. It's basically our ideas of how to establish yourself as a successful adult and just a morally good person, And one of the things we talked about were wondering if your good times are over, are we out of our good times, man? And I really feel, it's funny, man. And this is, and again, we're going to talk about this, y'all, and we're going to completely shy away from politics. We always do. But, I just think there is a big undertone right now in our culture to tell us that our good times are over, that it's all doom and gloom, and that everything is going down the toilet, And there's a few things I want to touch on about that. And this is before I even give my opinion about what I think. But here's something I think, outside sources that affect our own mental thought process about the current state of world events and even micro our own events, But we are slowly dying. A lot of times what you feel is your impending doom. You subconsciously know. See, that's the difference between me and that dog sitting out there on the couch right now with my wife. It has no concept that in 10 years it will be dead and no longer alive, and its life will be completely over and it will be forgotten about one day. That is the human condition. It is something that if you go back to it's funny, I won't talk politics, but I'll bring up the Bible like it's candy, But if you go back into the Bible,
the Bible's safe.
Yeah, the Bible's safe here. You go back in the Bible and you read about Paul. He was saying back in the day, and I know, this isn't a Christian podcast, but I grew up knowing the Bible. So Paul talks about in the Bible to the Corinthians, I'm pretty sure he says that I live in the end of days. These are the end of days. He was writing those books to the Corinthians and all these other churches that it was the end of days. You know, he was saying that, I mean, they were going to see Jesus come back, dude. You know, Paul was writing his books of the Bible 200 years after Jesus. Paul never knew Jesus. You know, Paul was basically a white man spreading Christianity into, which I could be wrong about him being white, but he was spreading Christianity into like Italy and Greece and places like that through the Mediterranean and on into Europe, basically. He thought 2,000 years ago that it was the end of the world and that he was going to see the demise of human civilization. They hadn't even invented gasoline yet. They hadn't even invented the industrial revolution, putting coal ash and carbon dioxide into the air in a mass level.
Right.
There weren't 7-8 billion people on the earth. They hadn't even discovered the Americas, bro, for another two millennia. And you look at the Mayans on the other side of the planet, don't even know any of these people. God, as far as they knew, they were the only people on earth.
Right.
They thought they lived in the end of days.
Yep.
It is the end of days because the days just end, man. I mean, it's the thing is we are on a trajectory towards the end of time, no matter what, because time started, time's a clock, time will eventually wind down, and I think you have to look beyond that. And I know that's not even really the conversation we're having, but I want to start there because I want to say sometimes you got to reel yourself back in a little bit and realize things probably ain't that bad. Things probably ain't as bad as you think they are. I think you have to.
I got something to touch on that.
Well,
you're.
Let me finish
finalize.
first because you look back. I mean, look at World War II, brother. Look at they're talking about World War III right now, but I mean, you're talking World War II was the only time nuclear weapons have ever been used. Millions of people, genocide. Just not even counting the loss of life in the wars themselves.
It looked like the end of the world then.
It looked like the end of the world then. You look at the Cold War when they were rushing those ships towards Cuba, and we said, if y'all cross that line, we're gonna shoot some bombs at you. And they said, well, if you shoot bombs at us, we're gonna shoot bombs at you. God, man, my grandma said used to in school, they were used to the idea that the one day the school was just gonna get canceled because the nukes were gonna come and melt everyone.
Right.
So I think I want to start there just by saying, maybe we just are too stressed out. Maybe the problems maybe the problems are micro. You're talking about, well, not even in a personal life, but on the bigger scale of things are bad. Everything's bad. But maybe a lot of it is micro. Maybe a lot of it is like, I feel displaced, trapped, lost, all the dark things, depressed, and I know I do. I know when we were having this conversation last night, we got off phone, and Blake, I freaked out. It's hard times.
It is tough.
It's
man.
hard times, man.
It's tough. You can't take it personally. I mean, we live in a day and age where if you pay attention to the news, you're basically eroding slowly at your character. I mean, I will say this, man. I feel like one reason why the media plays so much into the divide of separating everybody out, Democrat, Republican, black, white, is because the ratings. It sells.
Yeah.
Man, it sells like crazy because it pits them against them, and they want to do everything they can to resolve this hatred, but it usually just fuels the fire. So it's just this perpetual
What's a tune in next week?
frustration.
It's tune in next week. It's tune in next week to see if the whites have killed all the blacks or the blacks have killed all the whites, or it's just turned into this crazy thing that's not even really relevant in most people's lives.
They're monetizing off of fear.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm telling you right now, if you're a white man, black man, Asian, transgender right now, listening to this show, you go to work and you are friends with people that are not like you. I guarantee it. I put money on it. Most people in this country and the world are friends with people that are nothing like them. I know I am. So I know the people that are friends with me are at least the same. And I think now, okay, so I want to touch on
one more
this.
thing though.
Go ahead, because you wanted to counter what I was saying. You go right ahead, man.
There was this study that they did, and I read about this probably 2-3 weeks ago. Someone sent it to me through my email, so I clicked it, and it was a Harvard professor, and he did this study on basically quality of life. He talked about the conditions that people lived in the Middle Ages, conditions that people lived in the biblical times, how long people would live for, the access to medicine, the ability to cure things versus now where we have all these advancements in medicine, all these advancements in technology. You can light your room and not have a fire burning. You can have clean water. You can use the bathroom and everything works. You turn the faucet on, the water comes out. So the article basically was stating this guy, in all of the advancements in technology and medicine, the statistics prove that now is the best time to be alive in the history of humanity.
Right.
Not just from you can have a retirement and you can, but he was basically saying from a quality of life, your diseases, your access to medicine, your access to everything, is abundant and available here in the United States. I know it differs everywhere in the world, but the point of the matter is it's better than it was, and it's the best it's ever been. And at the end of the article, he kind of rounded it off and was like, I just want you to digest something that is profoundly real and that does not project negativity onto how you view the world these days, because the world is full of negative hatred, war, but in reality, there's still a lot of good people out there.
Right.
There's still a lot of people out there that are living good lives, trying to do right, trying to help other people, trying to build their families up, their communities up. I mean, it's everywhere, but it's so easy to get distracted by the negative media, man, all of the news. And it is designed to sell ratings, and it is designed to keep you coming back. It's like an addiction, You keep coming back to the drip, trying to get that fix, man. And
it's the same with social media. I was telling my wife last night, it's the same especially for somebody like me that's not on social media, Blake. I sit here and I preach all this convoluted BS about the way you all are living. No offense, but I mean, I've said it plenty of times on the show that I'm just pretty strongly against it. I mean, my wife knows it, but I'm sitting here explaining to her all these things and reading the news and reading off all this stuff, and I'm like, you know what? This is my social media. This is my thing that spikes those pheromone or whatever in my brain, that and those chemicals in your brain that make you say, I need another fix. I need another fix. I need another fix. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. And I mean, a lot of people are just on both. But I mean, am I not just as guilty as those that are also? It's funny because we're going to get into this, but and for those that don't see on our YouTube, I just held up my phone. You can follow us on YouTube. Just look up the 30 something broadcast. We post live clips of the show. But anyway, digressing, it's just like social media or a video game or anything like that. I bet if you do studies of the brain, I'm sure they have been done, it'll show you it's just as unhealthy for your brain to just be constantly tuned in to what's happening in the world, because Blake, there's constantly bad stuff to report on forever, no matter what. If they created a true utopia of no disease and people live for 200 years, there would still be bad things to report on the news. I mean, it's just the way it's always been and the way it'll always be. But I wanted to say this, back to just the very beginning of this topic, you had said you do believe that the pendulum is slowly swinging back. I do too, man. I hate to say it. I believe the pendulum is slowly swinging backwards, man. I mean, you can see it and here's why I think it, Blake, and it's might even touch differently on what you're even going at, but I think we live in very immoral times. I believe that there are a lot of good people out there and stuff, but even the institutions of college and public schools and a lot of things, like we're just all taught to believe now that we're the best. We're number one. America's number one, and I'm number one because I'm an American. Yeah. And it's all about me and what I want. Instant gratification on these cell phones and the internet has become. I mean, you got dating on tap. You've got food on tap. I mean, if I lived in New York City right now, I could have a woman and a pizza at my house in 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. On Tinder and PizzaHut.com.
And weed,
beer, groceries. I don't got to leave the house.
They'll deliver anything.
So, I think the technology has just pushed. We also, that Harvard doctor, and I don't know if he touched on the article or not, but I would be interested to see what someone of that, intelligence would say about the differences of all the times in the world we have never had a wireless, and even wired, but you know what I mean. It's everywhere now on these phones and everything.
Yeah.
Everything is connected through the internet, and I think technology in general, not just the internet, but technology. Even if this computer wasn't connected to the internet right now, I can do so many things on it. I can. I mean, dang man, my lawnmower, my weed eater are electric. Like we live in a time where we're so dependent on technology. Here's what I want to know: what happens if that ever turns off? And then we have the 7-8 billion people on this planet. When the lights go out. I mean, I think the pendulum is slowly swinging back because we're in such a helter skelter of an immoral culture, because we've lost. I feel like as a living species, we've lost our way, man. And I don't know how you feel about that, but I feel that way, man.
I think that you touched on a familiar thought for me when you said that, because in my mind, the way I look at that is the surefire evidence of the pendulum swinging backwards is our absolute reliance on these things. The fact that most people can't get from A to B without it, like you said, you take that out of the equation, let's say the internet goes down. I mean, anything's possible. What happens? How do people communicate? I mean, we have completely lost touch with the physical realm. I mean, it was actually really funny because someone sent me a book of stamps the other day, and I was like, what,
Right.
why would you send me a book of stamps?
Yeah.
In today's world, what would possess you to do that? But I started to think about it, and I was like, I'm really glad they sent me those stamps. Like, maybe I should write a few letters.
Yeah.
I feel like the art of communication is lost because everything is digital. Everything is through the wire, So it's like, what real contact are we having? I feel like people talk about this conspiracy, or like, are we living in the Matrix? It's like, well, yeah, if you look at it in the sense of like, we're constantly walking around like this and our entire life is through this, then yeah, I would say we are part of the Matrix. I would say we have bought into, and the point I'm getting at is if you remove this, we have gotten dumber. We have actually taken our knowledge, yeah, we're progressing still, but it's technology that we're relying on to hold us up, to prop us up as we continue to move forward. If you take the technology away, we're actually a lot dumber. You take the technology away, can the surgeon actually do brain surgery without any of the technology, without any electricity? I mean, no, probably not. I don't know. But the point
I'm sure
getting
you'll
at,
always have a whiz kid that can do those things, but would they have ever had the
that's not even the
technology
point.
to discover the medical expertise it takes?
Yeah.
That's the thing, I mean, it's without these because I mean, the thing is, Blake. Now the thing in your pocket is a supercomputer, but I mean, you're talking like true supercomputers, true technology that's being used on medical expertise or just any kind of business ventures, things like that. Like, you truly took all that away, man, the world would be in a lot worse place than it is right now. And to ride so delicately on a grid that could be obstructed is a very dangerous thing. And I'm not saying I mean, it doesn't need to change. Sure, it needs to change. Will it change? No, it'll never change. And you know what I'm going to do, Blake? It's the same as saving up for my retirement when I know the stock market crash again. I'm just going to keep riding this wave. But I know that we're overpopulated, and I know that this weather's crazy. And people can say what they want, and I said we're not going to get political, because it's funny that the weather is a political issue.
Everything's political.
But everything's a political issue. But I will tell you this, whether it's global warming or God or whatever, I'm going to tell you something. Driving down through Florida, the weather's an issue. Just turn on TV right now and seeing those fires over there in California, the earthquake in Mexico City, or tsunamis out in the eastern part of the planet. There's problems. There's problems.
No denying that,
and that's a sign of, I feel like, true helter skelter, true, like the planet even saying, like, slow it down.
Slow down.
Yeah,
it'll take something terrible, man.
It's funny. Everyone says
for us to realize.
Anytime this conversation ever comes up, that's the one thing somebody ends up always saying. It'll take a mass I mean, I'd say mass because it don't mean like all, but a huge extinction of humans. And I hate to say that. I mean, I don't want that. I don't want to be a part of that. But I mean, really, it's sad when you have this conversation, and that's the most logical conclusion that any of us can ever come up with when we have it. Because everybody's got high and had this conversation, man. There's too many people, man. It's gonna take a disease, or it's gonna take a nuclear war, man. I mean, that's sad when you think about that, man. That there's so many people on this planet right now that how can we go further as a culture if the morals are gone? And how can you have morals when you're trying to feed 8 billion people and it's growing on top of itself when 8 becomes 12 and 12 becomes 15 and 15 becomes 22 and 22 I mean, God, when does it stop?
I think our only chance of survival is the Boy Scouts.
You know, hey, I'll tell you what, Boy Scouts right now got their
Trying
own
to stay
issues
political on you.
I know you are. But look, I mean,
No,
man,
man,
it's hard to
true,
talk
dude.
about this issue without talking about politics. Like you were even stating earlier, and when we say talk politics, we mean political views. You know what I mean?
We're not going to pressure any view onto anybody.
And ain't going to be no spin on no BS happening in the news right now.
Right.
We're not here to argue points about that. We're here to argue points and agree on things about, you know, living life in your 30s and think a 30-year-old typically man right.
What can we do?
And, you know, that's a good question. You know, what can we do? So let's do this. Let's take another quick break. Let's get back. Let's answer that question. Let's talk about that. What can we do? We'll be right back.